Welcome everyone to this week's F3 track guide. We are at Monza, a very fast track for anyone who doesn't know. A couple of nasty chicanes. The first one being a race ender. Everyone knows Monza for that first chicane. But yes, I really like it around here. It's quick. It feels really good in the F3 car this week. It's going to be a good track. It's going to be a good week around here. Now, I would recommend watching the slow drive-through and not skipping straight through to the flying lap, because this week it's quite bumpy. I never realised how bumpy Monza was. In the GT3 and GTE cars, they kind of soak up those bumps, and you don't really feel how bumpy it is. But in the F3 car, you definitely feel it. And there's a couple of areas around here where you can suffer floor damage, even just from the middle of the track. So yeah, keep an eye out for that in the slow drive-through. But yeah, as always, we have that with the flying lap and the far chase camera angle. Hopefully, as always, it takes some time off your lap times, improves them, and can make you more consistent around here and have a good week. So yeah, hit that like and subscribe button, turn those notifications on. Let's head into it. So guys, here we are. We're on the start-finish line, and we are going to head down this very long straight, which is where I'd say 80 to 90% of overtakes are going to be done or made. And we're going to head down into the first corner. Now, if anyone who's raced Monza knows or has seen it on TV, this is where your race can end before it's even begun. So it's very important to get this right, especially when you've got cold tyres at the start of the race, cold brakes. Yeah, it's important to know not only where to brake when everything's working fine and up to temperature, but yeah, especially at the start. So what we're going to be keeping an eye out for is the 150 mark on the left hand side and that bush. Now pretty much where that bush ends is around about 125, so it's in between the 150 and the 100, and it's just after that we're then going to brake. Now with cold tyres and cold brakes, you're going to brake a little bit earlier. It's just sensible to do that. You're best off going into this corner slow until you've got temperature in those brakes, so that you can brake a little bit later. But yeah, so the 125 marker where the bush ends is, or just after it, is our braking zone, with everything up to temperature. Now what you're going to be doing, you're going to be all the way up in the gears at sixth, very high speed, shifting down all the way to seconds. Now, as you start to see the corner come into view, around about halfway on this green patch on our left-hand side, we're going to start to turn in. Now, you want the car to be rolling in, carrying a little bit of speed, but not too much. And we're going to take this, we're going to cut this corner. We kind of want half on, half off. Because what this does, this opens up the very sharp left-hander. It's important to get this right because this can result in you losing or gaining 2 to 3 temps here. What I found just by going over this corner and opening up the left-hander. If you go wide, you then have to shift down to first, or you just have to really slow the car down, and it compromises your exit. And likewise, don't want to cut this too much because you'll get a slowdown. So pretty much half and half. There we go. Now I just want to bring these sausage curbs to your attention here. Now, if you look up further back into the corner, as you may see them on the F1, the real life drivers, don't go over these sausage curbs. Use that runoff over the left hand side. You will get a slowdown, but you won't suffer any damage. If you go over these curbs, you can pretty much end your race. I've done it quite a few times in practice just to see what damage it can cause. It can cause floor damage, which can obviously affect your top speed, which you really need around here as it's such a fast track. And worst case, it can give you a broken suspension or a broken front wing, which I've had. So yeah, if you lock up and you know you're going to miss the corner, just go straight on through the runoff. Just take that slow down. and it'll be worth it in the long run. It's better off than your race ending. So as we carry on, we've gone over that corner, back to it, and we're in second gear as well, all the way through this. And we're ease on the throttle, and we're keeping it tight to this sausage curb as we can. Now, stay off this sausage curb. Please don't touch it. There's the next chicane, you can kind of take the sausage curb a little bit. But this one here, I found 99 times out of 100, no matter what speed you're going, how slow you're going, if you touch that sausage curb, it spins your car out on the exit. So we want to stick close to it, but not touch it. Now, as we're coming through this left-hander, we're easing on the throttle. You don't want to be on the throttle too quickly, because as you can see, my steering's way over to the left, and if you get on the throttle too quickly, your car's just going to spin from underneath you. So we're easing on the throttle, second gear, using the most of the runoff, let the car drift right without going onto the gravel, and then full throttle all the way around to the next chicane, keeping it tight to this curb. Now, what you're keeping an eye out for is this marker here, the 100-yard marker. Now, you'll be all the way up in the gears again, 6th gear, and we're pretty much braking on the 100. And we're going to shift down from 6th to 3rd, turning in, and once again, like the last entry to this first chicane, we're going to get half and half on. Don't want to cut it too much because you'll get a slow down. And then we're turning in. Now, this sausage curb here, be very, very careful. You can take it a bit. You can get one wheel over it. But what I've found is that if you go over it just a little bit too much, the car will bounce off. You'll be fine on exit, but you'll suffer floor damage because the car bounces up and hits down, and that affects your top speed by a good couple of hundredths. And round here, that is the be all and end all, especially with how fast it is and that main straight where all the overtaking is going to be done. You'll just be a sitting duck. So you want as much top speed as you can get here. So we are through this in 3rd gear, slightly lifting off the throttle, let the car go over, and full throttle, let the car run, use the runoff, and we come up to the first Lesmo. Now, I won't lie to you, I don't like these corners. These next 2 corners, I'm so inconsistent with them. It's pretty much where I lose a lot of my time. But what we're keeping an eye out for is the shadows in the trees. There is no 50 bulb marker. All we've got is the 100. Now, what we're keeping an eye out for is as you go over this shadow here, or just past this shadow on your right hand side, you're going to start braking. Now, you may get up into 5th. Normally I'm in 4th. I don't really change up to 5th. There's not really much point. You'll be at the top of the rev limiter in 4th. And then you start to brake, trail braking, and then you start to turn in just before this concrete patch on the right. Riding it through 4th. Now, as you come round the corner, as you get to this concrete patch, or just before this concrete patch, while keeping it tight to the corner, but not too tight, because it's quite easy to get shallow on this corner. It's a little bit of a late apex, to be honest. Too many times, that's where my inconsistency comes from, is that I turn in too quickly, and then I get on the power and I run wide on the exit. So as we're coming into the corner, a little bit late. And as we hit this concrete patch, that's when you then want to be back on the full throttle, letting the car run out left. Now, what iRacing have done with this year is they have made this runoff here a very harsh off track. So don't know if you can see when it does it. No, it hasn't come up. But if you pretty much get any wheels onto this AstroTurf, you get an off track. So it's so easy to do, and you can just rack them up throughout the race. So be wary of getting two wheels onto that off track. You don't lose traction, you don't lose grip, it's just purely an off track, and likewise with the second Lesmo as well. So as we head down into second Lesmo, you'll be shifting up from 4th to 5th, and as you get on the 50 or just before the 50, we're braking, shifting down into 4th, turning in pretty much just after that 50. So this is this is kind of the opposite one. What I do here is that I don't turn in early enough. So I did a complete opposite on this one. I don't know if it's a reaction to the previous corner, but that's where my inconsistencies come from. So pretty much as you're braking just after the 50, you want to start turning in because it does come up on you quickly. Don't get the curb up. Don't get up on that curb because the car will bottom out and slightly be unsettled, and you lose a bit of speed on exit. And then as you're hitting this curb, you pretty much want to be on full throttle because we're only dabbing the brakes back at the 50 ball marker, allowing the car to move out left. Likewise, don't let the car run too wide because you'll get an off track. Very harsh, those two corners. And then all the way down this straight under the bridge to the S's, to Ascari. Now, little word of warning for you guys, which I've noticed. Don't run in the middle of the track. If you run, I don't know if it's this setup that I've got, if the ride height's a little bit too low, but I'm just gonna, I would recommend it no matter what setup you use. As you come under this bridge, you can see there, the car goes, there's a little dip. Now, you will get floor damage from that. So do not run for the middle of the track under this bridge. You want to be either over the right hand side or over to the left hand side, even when you're overtaking as well, because I've noticed you get floor damage and it just, like I've said before, affects your top speed, which is not what you want. If you stay on the right hand side, it's very minimal, there's not really much of a dip, so stay away from the middle of the track there. Now, as we are coming up to the Ascari chicane, you're all the way up in the gears, and we are looking for the 100 ball marker. So just after the 100 or on the 100, we are braking down into 4th. And then as we see the sausage curbs, we are turning in while trail braking through, keeping it as tight as we can to them. On half throttle, we're not on full throttle yet because you'll lose control of the car when the car will just run wide. Once again, keeping it tight to these sausage curbs. And as you've got past those sausage curbs, back on full throttle, tight to the curb again, full throttle, all making use of the runoff if necessary, all the way down to Parabolica, the last corner. Once again, this is another overtaking opportunity here, but if you're up behind someone and you feel like it's not worth, you don't feel comfortable going for the overtaking opportunity, it's probably not worth it. You're probably best just sitting up behind them, making sure you get a good exit on this corner, nailing it and taking them down the main straight. So it's not always a necessity to overtake them here. Just a little bit of advice for you guys. Now, what we're keeping an eye out for is the 50 ball marker, but this green patch of AstroTurf. Now, the end of this AstroTurf is what I use as a braking marker. I go down from 6th to 4th, and I am trail braking. I'm not touching I am not touching the gas at all. Trail braking, keeping it tight to the apex. And I don't get back on the throttle until I get just before these set of lights here, this big pylon or mast. I then get on the throttle, hold in the middle of the track. I don't want to let the car go out too far wide because you'll lose time. Hold in the middle of the track, shifting up the gears, and then keeping it tight to this line, run over the middle of it, covering as little track as possible, and then over the start finish line. And that, guys, is a drive through around Monza. What we'll do, I hope that's, well, before we get into the full replay, flying lap, I hope that's been good for you guys. There's a couple of little areas there, like I said, where floor damage is a big thing around here, and if you consistently go over those curbs or go through that dip in the middle of the bridge, you will lose top speed, and it's so important to maintain that round here with especially with this main straight. So yeah, let's head into the final lap.